Hey, I want to welcome you to today's devotion. We're going to talk about something that may be a little uncomfortable, and that is the fatal flaw. So let's go right now to our devotion. Most of us are well aware of the sin of David, where he committed sin with Bathsheba, committed adultery, he committed murder, he committed deceit, lying, all of those things. And you wonder why. How could a man of God, a man who's walked with God for so many years, how could he do this? Well, I think the seeds of that sin were planted a long time before the sin ever happened. You see, there's a story in the scriptures that talks about how David, when we brought the Ark of the Covenant into the city of David, and this was for him a great victory, a great thrill, a great joy, and he danced and he sang before the Lord, and he was excited, he was thrilled about what happened. But his wife, Michal, she saw him, she saw what was happening, and she was disgusted. And when he came in back to her, she said to him, you dance half naked before these slave girls, and you just made a fool of yourself. But at the end of that story, there's something very interesting. And it says that she had no children until she died. Something happened in their intimacy with one another during those moments. You see, there was a broken relationship. And I believe that what happened is that there were seeds that were planted in David that sort of grew in David. And I'm not excusing David. I'm not saying who was right or wrong, but I'm just saying there were some seeds planted there that were never dealt with. David needed to deal with them. Michal needed to deal with them. And because they didn't deal with that, it resulted in a terrible, tragic thing of sin in David's life. Now, I want to say this to husbands and wives, parents and children, Christian and Christian, friend and friend. The seeds of the destruction of our relationship are often planted years before we see the destruction of that relationship. And that's why when there's hurt in our hearts, when there's something that's there that we've done, or something that we've been offended by, or we have offended someone else, we need to sit down, especially as brothers and sisters in Christ, as husband and wife, as parent and children, and we need to sit down and have an honest, humble conversation with one another. And we need to deal with that, because if we don't deal with it, it's going to show up later on as it did in David's life. And so we need to deal with that. The relationships that God gives us with other people are the most important relationships that we can have outside of our relationship with Him. And especially as husbands and wives, listen, don't let anything come between us. I've seen so many husbands and wives that end up in divorce, that end up in an extramarital affair, and end up in adultery and all kinds of things, because that intimacy was cut off because of some kind of broken relationship. Someone offended the other, and they never dealt with that. So don't let that happen in your relationship. Listen, if I can tell you anything that has helped me in my marriage, in my relationship with my wife and my children, is trying to be transparent. I've not always been that way, but we've tried, and we've said, listen, let's just be honest with each other. Let's talk about it. If we fail, let's don't be afraid to share that we fail. If there's something going on, let's talk about what's going on and let's deal with that. And having that kind of transparency has enabled us to have a happy, healthy marriage for more than 50 years. And so if you want that kind of relationship, you're going to have to be transparent. And by the way, the church needs to be transparent in our relationships with one another. If we want to have a happy, healthy, growing church, we've got to have transparency. We've got to be able to humbly, and I use that word humbly, talk with one another and share with one another and pray for one another, that we might be healed, that we might see God do that work in us. So today, don't let a seed be planted in your heart like David did. Be transparent, be honest, be humble, and pray with one another.